Welcome to the Hall of Monsters. I see you are wearing your protective gear. That's good, because during your visit here, your safety is not guaranteed. So, every step you take, beware, for the monsters you'll see ahead are the scariest ones from Japanese folktales. If they don't haunt you during your visit, they sure will haunt your dreams. And let me tell you, no anime you have watched could have prepared you for this. I already see doubt and fear in your eyes. So let's begin our tour before you lose that little flicker of courage left within you. There's no better monster to greet you than the Naparabo. You might not notice it, but it is happy to have new victims. I mean visitors. Naparabo looks like an ordinary human being in almost every way. That is why it can blend in seamlessly with human society. But things will quickly get uncanny once you meet face to face with it. You see, it has no face at all. Its head is like a blank orb. But here's the thing, Naparabo is quite harmless. It only frightens people, that's it. In legends and stories, it usually does that by impersonating someone familiar to its potential victims. And once it has their attention, it causes its features to disappear, almost as if erasing a pencil drawing. What is left is a blank, smooth sheet of skin with no eyes, nose, or mouth. So, as you might have imagined, its true identity and what it really looks like is unknown. One of the stories in which Naparabo appears is about a lazy fisherman. Despite his wife's warnings, he goes fishing from a sacred imperial koi pond. On his way there, he meets another fisherman who also warns him not to go there. Still, he ignores him. Once he arrives at the pond, a beautiful young woman begs him not to fish there. But he doesn't listen to her either. That is when she wipes off her face. When the fisherman runs home to hide with fear, his wife confronts him and criticizes him for his wrongdoing. Plot twist, only to wipe her face as well. Speaking of fish and ponds, let's move on to Cup Fa. Don't fall for their rather funny and mascot-like appearance. Cup Fa is a dangerous monster you wouldn't want to cross paths with. These creatures, which are often depicted as humanoid turtles, live in and around water bodies such as lakes, ponds, or rivers. Cup Fas are generally the size of a human child, yet they are physically stronger than a grown man. Their skin color can vary from different shades of green to bright red and even blue. In addition, they can either be slimy or covered in scales. As unique as each Cup Fa can be, they all have a turtle shell on their back and a mouth resembling a beak. Their arms and legs are webbed between the toes and fingers, but the most characteristic part of their appearance is the bowl-like objects that lie on top of their skulls. This is considered to be the source of Cup Fa's power and life force, and must be kept filled with water at all times. If this water spills or the bowl is damaged in any way, a Cup Fa can become incredibly weakened and will be unable to move. Cup Fas are known to cause mischief. Although they can befriend humans, you should always approach one with caution, because they might try to lure you into the water to feed on you. However, there's also a chance they might challenge you to a sumo wrestling match. Just know that they are really good at it before accepting this challenge. Yet again, if you do find yourself in a match, here's a pro tip. Find a way to trick the Cup Fa into bowing so low that the water in its dish spills out. And hey, if you refill that water later, you can bring the creature under your command. Take a look at this lady here. She seems to be sleeping peacefully, right? Well, look again. There's something strange going on with her neck. Rokurokubi might appear as an ordinary woman by day, but when it's nighttime and her body is asleep, her neck stretches to incredible lengths and roams around freely. Although Rokurokubi is no less creepy than the other creatures, there is something that makes her different. It is that, unlike others, she is actually not born as a monster. She used to be a human being just like us, but she was transformed by a curse resulting from some evil action or misdeed. But the story gets sadder, because the mentioned misdeed doesn't necessarily have to be her own doing. In many cases, it is either Rokurokubi's husband or father who actually committed evil actions. But she's the one paying the price because the curse only affects women. If you think Rokurokubi cannot be that harmful or scary with that heartbreaking backstory, then you're right. Her head might attack small animals sometimes, or she might cause mischief by scaring nearby people. But that's mostly it. What she loves to do in her night travels, however, is to lick up lamp oil with her long tongue. Well, who are we to judge someone's favorite food? Nukakubi is Rokurokubi's much scarier sister. She is like an advanced version of her. sort of like an upgraded Pokemon. While Rokurokubi's head is always attached to her body, Nukakubi's head can come off from the neck and float around far and away from her body. The worst part is, though, she can get bloodthirsty sometimes, and that's when her detached head will start preying on humans to quench that thirst. However, she is not invincible. It is believed that if her body moves by any chance while it is sleeping, and her head is still floating around as that happens, then her head cannot return back to the body. Hope that comforts you a bit. You see a roll of cotton. I see a life-threatening monster. According to Japanese folktales, especially the myth of Tsukumogami, inanimate objects receive a soul, therefore become alive and self-aware after serving their owners for 100 years. Although they are usually harmless, they might tend to play small pranks on people. Yet again, they still have the capacity to get angry and vengeful, especially if there are people who threw them away or didn't treat them well. They might group up to take revenge. Ittan-momen is one of those object monsters. These possessed long and narrow sheets of cloth which were used to make clothes, can be seen flying through the night sky. They are often malicious and attack people by wrapping their bodies around a person's face and neck, strangling or smothering them. In some tales, it is said that wrapped cloths would spin around and quickly come flying to wrap themselves around people and take them away to the skies. Joker's laughter is gonna sound like music to your ears once you hear this, ladies. Yuki-onna is a female-looking monster that lives in the mountains, but despite her non-threatening appearance, meeting one will actually put you in a really dangerous position. She will smile and start laughing at you, and once she does, you'll realize that her laughter is somewhat toxic and infectious. It will cause you to start laughing along too, but even if she leaves, you will continue laughing after her until you are out of breath and unable to stand. Even if you were strong enough to resist laughing along with her, you would still not be safe. You see, merely hearing her laughter, no matter how far away she cackles, is enough to put you in a stupor. You'll be haunted by that annoying and ear-piercing sound wherever you go, for the rest of your life. However, it's not like anybody who travels through the mountains will meet her. There is one way to avoid this laughing curse altogether. You see, she appears to people only on the 1st, 9th, and 17th day of each month. So, plan your travels accordingly.
It's 2010. You're in the Japanese waters of the Pacific Ocean, about 745 miles south of Tokyo, and very close to the island of Iwo Jima. The sky is clear. There are almost no waves. A heavy, low rumble comes from somewhere deep under the sea. It scares away all the flying gulls. And then it gets quiet. Too quiet. It seems that even light waves don't dare to make a sound. Suddenly, a small bubble rises to the surface of the water. Then, thousands of air bubbles start moving up, one after another. The water begins to boil and heat up. Its temperature is so high that you can cook eggs or pasta in here. The boiling area grows to the size of a stadium. A huge amount of steam is released into the air. You can see an outline of some huge object through the boiling water. Then, everything stops. The water cools, the amount of bubbles goes down, and the surface of the ocean becomes calm again. That year, an underwater volcano erupted at that specific location. Fortunately, it didn't bring any serious consequences. In August 2021, the eruption repeated. But this time, everything wasn't limited to the bubbling water. The Japanese Coast Guard reported strong volcanic activity in the region. Hot steam and gases came out of the water and rose into the air to a height of 10 miles, which is about twice the height of Mount Everest. The huge awakened volcano began to slowly lift to the surface. If you took a helicopter ride above this place, you'd see more and more land coming out of the water. This is not just a volcano, it's a whole island in the shape of a horseshoe. And this is just the beginning. Seismologists say this island is the tip of a huge volcano. It fills the sky with smoke and ash. The air temperature is rising. Scientists continue to monitor the situation. They believe the volcano can completely get out of the water. Nobody knows what consequences this may have. This isn't the first island that has appeared in the waters of Japan. Underwater volcanoes have erupted several times over the past century. One of the most surprising cases occurred in 2013. That year, a small piece of land was formed next to the already existing island. the underwater volcano that emerged from the water began to grow slowly. At some moment, it connected to the island. After 2 years, the area of this island increased by 12 times compared to the original size. Smoke is always pouring out of this place, and its surface is filled with red-hot lava flows. The volcano is unstable and isn't going to calm down. Such phenomena occur not only off the coast of Japan. In the 1960s, a volcano awoke on the southern coast of Iceland. For 3 whole years, it was coming to the surface and had formed an island by 1967. They called it Stretchy. Unlike the Japanese islands, this is where the volcanic eruptions ended. Now the island is one of the most inaccessible places on the planet. Only a few scientists in the world have permission to walk around this place. They want to learn how the plant and animal life of the island are formed without human intervention. This is a unique event, and here's why. Underwater volcanoes differ in their behavior from land volcanoes. They don't explode and don't release lava flows upwards. A huge amount of water above them creates high pressure. As soon as the magma gets out, the water immediately lowers it to the seafloor. Underwater eruptions don't normally cause any changes on the ocean surface. So, millions of gallons of lava sink to the bottom, cool down, and solidify around the volcano. This lava forms a thick layer of Earth's rock. To make an island appear on the surface, an underwater volcano needs a lot of magma. The next eruption creates another thick layer. Millions of years pass, and passive lava flows form mountains. Constant eruptions increase the height of the seabed. Layer by layer, the cooled lava rises higher and higher, and then, one day, it appears on the surface in the form of an island. Often, underwater volcanoes don't reach the surface and fall asleep forever. Such volcanoes are called seamounts. The tectonic activity also affects the formation of islands. The volcano has a source of magma that comes from the mantle of the planet. The tectonic plate is moving, and a volcano is placed on it, so the plate can lead the volcano away from the source of magma. When a volcano rises, it can simply move aside and no longer erupt. From the outside, the volcanic islands look like an apocalypse, lava spraying in different directions, smog and ash filling the sky. But in fact, volcanoes are not about destruction, but the creation of new life. Lava is any hot metal, but the natural lava flowing out of volcanoes is called magma. When it appears on the surface of the ground, various gases and acids instantly evaporate from it, and magma becomes lava. But underground, it's magma. These molten metals contain trace elements of almost all chemical substances that exist in nature. They enrich the land they're flowing in. Ash is also filled with many different elements. The lava hardens, the ash settles, and this creates favorable conditions for the appearance of a rich ecosystem. It can take millions of years to develop, though. The simplest bacteria appear. They feed on chemical elements coming from the volcano. When you have favorable conditions for bacteria, you get favorable conditions for bigger life forms. Birds flying by also help to develop the new ecosystem. They build nests on the island, bring tree seeds and plant spores from the continents and other islands. All this enriches life on the volcano. Volcanoes are isolated places, so unique species of animals, insects, and bacteria can appear only there and can't be found anywhere else on the planet. However, if the volcano wakes up, it can also destroy the ecosystem. The entire island can be covered with ash and simply lose all vegetation. But then, on the scorched ground, life can appear again. Hundreds of islands around the world appeared because of the eruptions of underwater volcanoes. Hawaii, Indonesia, and Iceland have them on their territory. Imagine that people settled on a similar volcanic island and built a city there. And one day, the volcano woke up. It once happened 200 miles south of Tokyo. People built a beautiful town right in the center of an active volcano on the island of Aogashima. In May 1785, the catastrophe began. That day was sunny, and no one could imagine what tragedy was approaching them. At some point, thousands of birds took to the air and flew away from the island. Then, the ground began to shake. A heavy, low sound came out of the town depths. Streams of smoke were coming out of the crater of a green volcano. The volcano was throwing dirt, large stones, and various debris into the sky. The disaster lasted for several weeks. Since then, more than 200 years have passed, and the volcano has never woken up again. The town was rebuilt after the disaster. Now, this place is so great, people don't want to leave, despite the risk of a new eruption. More and more residents are coming to the island. There are many thermal springs, and the waters around the island are rich in fish. But the volcano may wake up at any moment. Fortunately, meteorological and seismological services monitor the situation. A lake can also form inside the volcano, but you shouldn't swim in it. In Indonesia, on the island of Java, there's a volcano with a crater inside. It's filled with turquoise water. The magma inside the volcano consists of many molten metals and chemical compounds, and the lake gets these substances. The volcano emits sulfur dioxide gases that combine with the metallic lake. This gives the water its strong acidity and turquoise color. The steam coming from the lake is acid. When it combines with air, it ignites. This is visible at night. Sulfur accumulations flare up and illuminate everything around.
Pikachu, I choose you!
Feeling nostalgic yet? Well, this is shared by millions of fans of Pokemon worldwide. As for the anime genre in general, it's literally taken over the world. Surprisingly, it has many features that pertain to real life, giving insights into real Japanese culture. For example, food. If you've ever watched anime, you must have noticed how carefully animators depict the meals characters eat in most series. A bowl of ramen, the traditional Japanese noodles, is usually drawn in careful detail. And if you look at the photos of real-life ramen, you'll see how closely it is copied in the animation. Same goes for almost all other traditional Japanese dishes. When characters have a dinner table with all sorts of foodstuffs on it, you can take a Japanese cookbook and find all of them in there just by the look alone. One reason for that is the audience's expectations. People in Japan know what their food looks like, and they expect it to look the same way in anime. The other reason is the overall respect the Japanese have for food. It's much more than just the stuff you put into your mouth and chew. Food has a lot of traditions and national customs related to it, from the way it's prepared to the way it's eaten. That's why it's paid great attention to in anime as well. A lot of series take Japanese myths and legends as the foundation of their plots. You can learn a lot about what they believe in from anime. For example, many fantasy series revolve around yokai, spirits that can take different shapes and be both evil and benevolent. One of the most popular anime series of all time, Naruto, uses a lot of local traditions as well in its setting. Shinobi, the warriors and guardians of countries in the anime, used to really exist back in medieval times. They couldn't command forces of nature, of course, but they were indeed highly trained in martial arts and were often sent for operations that required stealth. The nine-tailed beast, Kurama, is a special fox that appears in anime as well. In Japanese mythology, fox spirits, or kitsune, are supernatural beings whose power and wisdom depend on the number of tails they have. The older and stronger they become, the more tails they grow, and nine-tailed foxes are considered the most powerful of all. No wonder Kurama was the strongest of the tailed beasts in the anime. By the way, Pokémon also referred to this myth with one of its creatures called Ninetails. It obviously had 9 tails and looked like a fox. This Pokémon appeared already in the first generation and was one of the first 100. Right now, there are more than 900 Pokémon overall, and the number is still growing. Gotta catch 'em all! In recent years, the isekai genre has immensely grown in popularity, both in Japan itself and around the world. The key feature is that a common person from our modern world gets either summoned or reborn in another world, usually a fantasy one. The protagonist then has wonderful and dangerous adventures, and often becomes one of the most prominent figures in the new world. The reason for such popularity is simple. It's an escape from dull reality. Before their transition to another world, the main character is usually shown as a perfectly ordinary human being. They can be a school kid, an office clerk, or even a jobless person. And after they get transferred, they often obtain some superpowers or magic abilities that give them the upper hand against monsters and other enemies. It's really a thing in common among people all over the planet, but Japan is perhaps especially longing for such escapes. It's customary for the Japanese to work a lot, and burnout is pretty common for them. Also, they often stay at work after hours without extra pay, which takes its toll on their well-being too. Office work can be tedious and hard, so no wonder they dream of being transported to a fantasy realm where they could be free and have magical adventures. Speaking of office work, you might picture animators and illustrators working in anime studios as some popular and wealthy guys, but that's far from true. In fact, most animators earn just enough to feed themselves, and many of them say the pay they get is insufficient for the work they do. Despite anime studios earning billions of dollars on their most successful titles, they often pay their employees just enough to survive. That happens because most animators come to the industry out of sheer desire to work on what they love. They don't go there to earn money, but to see their favorite manga series become live on screen. Also, the traditional approach to work in Japan is all about us, not me. They work for the collective good, not for themselves. So it's not customary for them to complain about their work conditions, as opposed to Western societies. One of the less obvious parallels between anime and the real world is the usual setting of almost any shonen series. It's a specific genre that's aimed at teenagers and young adults in anime. It normally involves adventures, dangers, a pretty clear line between good and evil, and vivid characters on both sides of the conflict. In such titles, the main character usually has to go through a lot of trouble before they come out victorious. The viewers see them training hard, battling against ever stronger foes, and finding clever solutions to dire situations. The protagonist is almost never shown as someone especially strong. On the contrary, their enemies are all more powerful and cunning than they are, and it's through hard work and perseverance that the main character prevails. The not-so-hidden message of all these titles is that you can only achieve success by working hard and developing your skills. Nothing good comes without a struggle, and this rule can be easily applied to real life. It's also the rule many Japanese live by. The harder you work, the better you become. Apart from various adventurous titles, anime presents a vast array of casual, everyday life series. And from them, you can learn a lot about how the Japanese live. For example, if it's a title about school, it might be surprising to see all girls pictured walking around in skirts, even in winter. But in fact, that's totally true. Skirts are part of a school uniform in Japan for girls. It's not prohibited to wear warm stockings underneath them if it's cold, though. Skirts are also considered fashionable in Japan, so you would often see women walking around wearing them, even outside schools. And since it's not too cold in central and southern regions of Japan in winter, you can see skirts even in the coldest months. The sakura, or cherry trees, are literally everywhere in Japan. And just like it's shown in many anime series, the petals of these trees get carried all over the place in spring. There are even festivals held throughout the country dedicated to the blossoming of cherry trees. Such festivals are called hanami, which means viewing flowers. People come to parks and go to the countryside to enjoy the blooming of cherry trees. Households are also shown pretty true to life in anime too. Typical Japanese homes are small and minimalistic. They usually don't have much in terms of decoration, preferring practicality and comfort over visual pleasure. And yes, they sleep on the floor. Well, not exactly. They use futons, or mattresses that they put right on the floor. While beds are not really rare in Japan, futons are still very much a thing. By the way, it's sort of a custom to clean the futon in spring by taking it out to the balcony and beating it with a special stick. These mattresses are pretty heavy and hard to wash, so it's basically the only way to clean them after a long winter.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.